instructional video for preventing workspace contamination when coughing or sneezing.
We hope you're ready to learn and enjoy the presentation.
Did you know an estimated 9,000 people in the U.S. die each year from foodborne illness? Foodborne illnesses are caused by microorganisms like viruses and bacteria that are so tiny, over 1 million of them fit on the head of a pin.
But just because you cannot see these microorganisms does not mean they don't exist, and they should never be ignored. Oftentimes, people fail to see how easily bacteria can be spread.
One of the major ways contamination by these organisms occurs is coughing or sneezing. When a food worker coughs or sneezes into their hands or the air, food and kitchen surfaces are at high risk of contamination.
Now watch as this surface is contaminated by just a single cough.
All of the gross that you see on this plate are the bacteria spread by that single cough.
Now imagine these bacteria growing on your food.
This instructional video is meant to teach you the proper techniques for coughing and sneezing in order to prevent such contamination.
The following are demonstrations on what you should do if you need to cough or sneeze in the kitchen. To minimize the spread of microorganisms, there are 2 techniques you should try to use.
If possible, try to cough or sneeze into your sleeve. Many microorganisms do not fare well on fabric and die before contamination is possible. Whenever you feel the urge to cough or sneeze, be sure to step back from your workspace, slightly turn away from people and food around you, crook your elbow, and completely cover your nose and mouth.
The second option is coughing or sneezing into a disposable tissue. Be sure to step back from your workstation and cover both your nose and your mouth with the tissue. After you cough or sneeze, disposable tissues must be thrown out. There is a final step to both of these options. Whether you choose to use your sleeve or a tissue, be sure to wash your hands immediately after coughing or sneezing.
The Center for Disease Control and Prevention states that washing your hands with soap and water is one of the best ways to prevent infectious disease. When you wash your hands, be sure to use hot water. Apply a dime-sized amount of antibacterial soap to wet hands and rub together for 20 seconds. Be sure to scrub all exposed surfaces. This includes the back of your hands, your wrists, between the fingernails, and under the fingernails. If exposed, even wash your forearms all the way up to the elbow. Rinse your hands under warm water. Dry hands with a clean paper towel. After your hands are completely dry, turn off the water faucet with a paper towel. If you're washing your hands in the bathroom, use a paper towel to open the door and throw the paper towel away when you leave the bathroom. Don't touch anything that could recontaminate your hands.
Let's review. Watch these examples and determine if these people are correctly using the techniques we just covered. What's wrong with this picture? First of all, she sneezed directly into her hands, which allows microorganisms to escape easily into the air. She should have used a tissue or her sleeve to cover her nose and mouth. She needs to remove her hands from her face and hair in order to prevent the further spread of microorganisms. What about in this situation? Rather than sneezing directly into his hands, he should have used his sleeve or a tissue to cover his nose and mouth while sneezing. Also, a disposable tissue and not his hands should have been used to wipe his nose. In both situations, these individuals both failed to wash their hands after sneezing. This is an appropriate technique for sneezing.
Now let's observe what's wrong with these coughs. Again, do not cough directly into hands. Although bacteria do not usually survive on fabric, wiping hands on clothing is not a proper hand cleansing technique. Let's observe one final example. It was good that he covered his nose and mouth and coughed into a tissue, but wiping his hands on the tissue spreads bacteria instead of keeping them contained in the tissue. He also should have disposed of the tissue immediately after use. The following is an appropriate method of coughing.
After seeing this presentation, we hope you are a little more aware of how easily bacteria and viruses can be spread, but also how easily they can be contained.
By making these simple techniques we covered everyday habits, you can help prevent food contamination in your food service facility.
Thank you for your time.